Hello to you, my very best friend. Welcome to another video. As you have probably seen from the title and/or thumbnail of this video, today we are talking about the worst fragrances I have ever smelled. Now, of course, very, very important preamble here. I have no desire to poo-poo someone's art. And to me, fragrance, even at the most corporate level, is still an art form. Even if I don't like something, somebody somewhere has put so much of themselves into creating it, and by and large, I would rather not insult that effort. Rather than talking about something I don't like, I would much rather give attention to something I do like. There is certainly enough negativity on the internet as it is. Now, with that in mind, none of the fragrances that we're going to be talking about today, save for the very first one, appear to have had any effort put into their creation. This will become more apparent as we go through this video, but for some of these fragrances, I genuinely do not believe that during the creation of these fragrances that they were even smelled one single time by anyone involved in their production. So with that said, let's get into this list of garbage. Now, at number 5, to go back completely on pretty much everything I just said, even though this fragrance truly disgusts me, I do think of it as more of an honorable mention. This is something that more just establishes I guess not a ceiling, like a floor before we descend deeper into the depths of fragrance hell. This is a pick that is going to make some people mad, and you know what? Bring it. At number 5, the 5th worst fragrance that I have ever smelled is Tom Ford's Black Orchid Parfum. Now again, I don't want to poo-poo anyone's creativity, and this is by far the only genuine fragrance on this list. It's Tom Ford, the only house that rivals Creed in terms of overcharging for their fragrances, so I don't really feel that bad about it. And I know it has its defenders, but I just don't get it. Anytime I smell my sample of it, my first thought is, My second thought is, why? If you've never smelled it before, I think the best description of it would be take brown, maybe black bananas that just have white spots of mold on it, and dead wilting flowers, throw them on the ground and mash them into the dirt with your heel, pick that mush up and rub it on your skin, and that's pretty close to what Black Orchid Parfum smells like. It's just a truly baffling scent. And at first I thought it was because I just didn't like the profile. Ylang-ylang has never really been a note that I enjoy, mix it with earthiness, and it's just kind of weird. But that was until I smelled Initio's Psychedelic Love, which is pretty close to the same fragrance, to the point where I'm sure they looked at Black Orchid Parfum and said, hey, let's just do that. But it just does the same thing, but better in all categories. It's this thicker, warmer, just more interesting composition. One which I don't love, but I think is far, far superior to Black Orchid Parfum. But anyways, all of that is beside the point. Ultimately, Tom Ford's Black Orchid Parfum is my least favorite release from any major house. And trust me when I say that I would rather wear Black Orchid Parfum 1,000 times before I wear any of the other fragrances on this list even once. Okay, now we are getting into the just truly awful stuff on this list. Black Orchid Parfum was the Sistine Chapel compared to some of this garbage. At number 4, we have a fragrance with the truly unforgettable name of Seduction by New Brand. Let me just Google that to make sure I got it right. Yes, Seduction for Men by New Brand. You know this is going to be an absolute heater when you look this fragrance up, and one of the vendors listed is Best Buy. I believe that this is marketed as a ripoff of one of the Armani codes. I'm not sure which one. Information about both this fragrance and this brand online is very scarce. I did own it for some time, but along with the next fragrance on this list, I actually wound up returning both of them. But yes, this is supposed to smell like Armani code. Instead, it smells like... And that's not a joke. It genuinely smells like Windex, with maybe just a tiny little bit of apple mixed in, but I truly believe that whoever made this fragrance either worked at or knew somebody who worked at a cleaning product production facility, and, you know, maybe there was a bad batch that they couldn't use for their cleaning products, and so this person said, hey, why don't you give that to me? And this might become a running theme of this video, but it's to the point where I wonder how someone made something this terrible. I'll show some B-roll. I have a pretty small collection of aroma chemicals, maybe 60 or 70 or something, but I think that I could grab a handful of these completely at random and accidentally create something that was better than this. It's not that I have yet become a skilled perfumer or that I have any confidence in my abilities. I just don't see how you could get anything to smell this bad with even the most base level of aroma chemicals. I mean, I guess in that way it's a work of art, but not one that I think is worth the $8.99 that they are charging for it. Before I sent this back, I really should have tried spraying it on a window just to test my theory. Oh well. So Seduction by New Brand takes 4th place purely by virtue of it not smelling completely miserable. It's bad, but compared to what's coming... Next up on this list at number 3 is Amber and Leather by Maison Alhambra. Now, as you may be able to tell from the picture, this is a ripoff of Tom Ford's Ombre Leather. Ombre Leather is a fragrance that I just don't really care about. It's not for me, but I don't dislike it, and I can definitely acknowledge that there are aspects to it that are likable, and I can see why people like it. Amber and Leather, on the other hand, takes all of those sweet and enjoyable aspects of Ombre Leather, just flat out removes them. During the creation of Amber and Leather, I wonder whether they smelled Ombre Leather more than once at the very beginning. Amber and Leather smells a lot like, well, I'll go and get it. It smells like this aroma chemical, which is called isobutylquinoline. It is by far the most repulsive aroma chemical I own. It smells kind of like if you were to take a very, very old leather chair, one that has decades of sweat and spills and farts, and you mix it with a little bit of greenery and made it really, really bitter. That's kind of what IBQ smells like. If you want to use it in a leather accord, you combine it with other aroma chemicals to sweeten it up. It's also very useful in really, really low doses. I'm talking like thousandths of 1%. It can help provide texture and depth to woody accords and to gourmands. I find it is very helpful in creating like a chocolatey kind of smell. But no, Amber and Leather, despite its name, is just straight up isobutylquinoline. It seems like there is nothing in it that would provide a counterbalance to that terrible green bitter leather. And of course, just like IBQ is, it is insanely strong and lasts forever, and it smelled so bad and I just could not scrub it off no matter how hard I tried. And if I remember correctly, it wasn't cheap too. I think it's been discontinued since, thank God. But at the time, I swear I paid like between 40 to 60 bucks for it. Truly just a horrible experience all around. If you're looking for an Ombre Leather ripoff, this is not the one. Now I'm gonna get this vial of IBQ out of my room because even though it's sealed, it stinks awfully. Okay, in second place, and really it's kind of a toss-up between which one is second and which one is first. I think they are both equally terrible, but I do think this one is slightly better, and I'll go over why. But in second spot, we have Gray Flannel by Jeffrey Bean. I always want to call this sweater weather, I'm not sure why, and I almost just did, so I apologize if I do that during the rest of this segment. Now, I'm putting this in the second spot because I do believe that someone somewhere put effort into this. And mostly that's because this does work as a fragrance, but it is also so awful that there's no way that you could make it smell this bad without trying to make it smell this bad. I will give it credit for being an actual fragrance. I think that whoever made it had an objective in mind, and I think that they accomplished it. The problem is that that objective was madness. I owned this at some point. I don't know whether I still do. Hold on. No, I think I threw it in the garbage. I kept it for a while just purely out of shock value, but I guess I couldn't stand it anymore. So you look at the notes of this one and you think, well, that doesn't seem so bad. But what the notes don't emphasize is two things. Firstly, that this was a fragrance released in 1975. So I see this as a combination of all of the worst aspects of perfumery of that era. And the notes also don't get across just how much petitgrain is in this. It is an absolute petitgrain bomb. If you've never smelled petitgrain before, it is kind of woody and kind of green, but extremely bitter. It is really sharp and, in my opinion, pretty unlikable, and I think that is why it's not really used that much in perfumery, especially not in the modern day. A lot of people liken it to the smell of mothballs, but somehow worse. So take that hostile, abrasive petitgrain, mix it with this weird mishmash of florals and green notes, and throw in that 70s masculine spiciness. Make it as loud and as in your face as possible, and you have Jeffrey Bean's Gray Flannel. It is truly just a awful fragrance. Me describing what petitgrain smells like really doesn't get across just how bad Gray Flannel is. It is like aggressively, purposefully bad. It's like it was made for a Glengarry, Glen Ross executive type, a type of insane person who doesn't want to smell good but wants to smell intimidating. And despite all of that, it is still second on this list. And so we move on to what I'm calling the worst fragrance of all time, but to call this a fragrance is really insulting to fragrance as a whole. My inner debate between putting this fragrance at number 1 or Gray Flannel at number 1 was deciding between whether I thought a fragrance in Gray Flannel that is purposefully bad was more offensive, or whether it was more offensive to have this fragrance that clearly had no effort put into it at all. So at number 1, the worst fragrance I have ever smelled is VIP by Playboy. Now you might be wondering to yourself, Declan, why did you buy Playboy's VIP? And my answer to that is, well, it was like $6. They could have paid me $60 and I still would have felt ripped off. And that is saying something because I got this expecting it to be bad and I was still let down. I guess if I wanted to be generous, I would say that it's kind of like a fruity floral, but it's not. This is a combination of just the most horrific cleaning chemicals that makes new brand Seduction for men smell like a breeze. I truly believe that there was some sort of executive meeting there where somebody said, okay, what is the cheapest possible chemical thing we can get from China, and what is the cheapest possible bottle we can get our logo on, put them together and sell it. They could not have smelled it. Like they can't have. Nobody with any conscience at all could have smelled this and said, yeah, this is a thing that we can put our name on. And I guess ultimately that makes sense because it's Playboy, not exactly the most high morality of companies, morally strong companies out there. It's offensively terrible. Again, I spent $8 on it, foolish me. I swear it smells like it cost them 10 cents to produce. There was no effort or thought at all put into this other than what's the biggest profit margin we can get. And I'll reiterate what I was saying about new brand's Seduction for men, just what an awesome name that is. I cannot fathom how any combination of aroma chemicals can be put together to smell this bad. Give a child a handful of aroma chemicals and they will accidentally create something that is better than VIP. It's just deserving of the title of the worst fragrance ever. It's not just bad, it's offensive. I would say you could buy it maybe as a joke for someone, but don't even do that. It's not worth it. Instead of buying this, just throw your money straight into the garbage can. So yeah, Playboy's VIP, worst fragrance ever made, avoid at all costs. So there you have it. That has been this video. Just don't buy any of these fragrances. Believe me, it is not worth your money. Just trust me on this one. As always, I am truly thankful to everyone who watches these videos. I am so appreciative of your support. And as always, I will see you later.